November to 2017, security analysts at a North American casino noticed something strange. Large amounts of data were quietly leaving the building. Gigabytes of sensitive information were being transmitted outside the network, but there was no sign of malware, no compromised employee accounts, and no obvious intrusion. The casino's firewalls were active. Their servers were secure, yet the data kept flowing. Investigators began tracing the source of the breach deeper into the network, expecting to find a compromised computer or a hidden backdoor. Instead, they discovered something almost impossible. The attack wasn't coming from a server or a workstation. It was coming from a device sitting quietly in the casino lobby, a decorative fish tank. Casinos are some of the most technologically complex environments in the world. Behind the flashing lights and the noise of slot machines lies an enormous digital infrastructure. Surveillance systems monitor every table. Cameras track movement across the floor, and internal networks handle everything from financial transactions to customer data and loyalty programs. In a modern casino, thousands of devices are constantly communicating across internal networks. Security teams invest heavily in protecting these systems. Firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and monitoring tools are designed to catch suspicious activity before it becomes a serious threat. Because if attackers gain access to a casino network, the potential rewards are enormous. Financial records, private customer information, and operational systems could all become targets. But the attackers behind this breach didn't try to break through the casino's main defenses. They didn't target the servers. They didn't launch a phishing campaign. Instead, they went looking for something much easier to exploit. A device that security teams weren't paying attention to. Something small, something connected to the network, and something that no one ever expected to become part of a cyber attack. A smart device inside the casino's decorative fish tank. Like many modern systems, the aquarium had been upgraded with internet-connected monitoring equipment designed to keep the fish alive and the water conditions stable. A small thermometer sensor continuously measured the water temperature and automatically adjusted the system when needed. The device could even be monitored remotely through the internet, which meant it wasn't just connected to the fish tank. It was connected to the casino's network. To understand how the attackers pulled this off, you have to understand how many internet-connected devices exist today. Security researchers estimate that tens of billions of devices around the world are connected to the internet. Cameras, thermostats, refrigerators, doorbells, industrial sensors, medical equipment, and countless other smart devices are now part of everyday networks. Many of these devices are part of what's known as the Internet of Things, or IoT. The problem is that many IoT devices were designed with convenience in mind, not security. Manufacturers often ship them with weak protections, default passwords, outdated software, and minimal encryption are surprisingly common. That means once these devices are connected to the internet, they can sometimes be discovered by anyone who knows where to look. Hackers often use specialized search engines that scan the internet for connected devices. One of the most well-known tools is called Shodan. Instead of searching websites like a normal search engine, Shodan scans the internet for devices. Things like cameras, routers, industrial systems, and smart appliances. If a device is exposed online and poorly secured, it can show up in these scans. Researchers believe the attackers behind the casino breach used tools like this to locate vulnerable systems connected to the casino's network. Eventually, they found the aquarium monitoring device, a small thermometer controller connected to the internet. From the outside, it probably looked like just another harmless IoT device. But once the attackers began interacting with the system, they discovered something important. The device was connected directly to the casino's internal network, and that meant if they could access the fish tank system. they might be able to access everything behind it. Once the attackers gained access to the aquarium monitoring system, the fish tank itself was no longer the target. It was just the doorway. In cybersecurity, this technique is known as gaining a foothold. Attackers compromise a weak device first, then use it as a stepping stone to move deeper into the network. And if the network isn't properly segmented, a single vulnerable device can open access to far more valuable systems. From inside the aquarium controller, the attackers were now sitting inside the casino's internal network. At that point, they could begin mapping the environment. Hackers often start by quietly scanning the network to see what other systems are available. Servers, databases, internal applications. Anything connected to the same infrastructure could potentially be discovered. This phase of an attack is known as reconnaissance. The attackers aren't stealing anything yet. They're learning. They're figuring out where the valuable data is stored and which systems they might be able to access next. Because once an attacker is inside a network, the goal is no longer just entry. The goal becomes movement. This is where another key tactic comes into play: lateral movement. Instead of attacking systems directly from the outside, hackers move from device to device within the network, gradually working their way toward higher value targets. If security monitoring isn't strict enough, this movement can happen quietly and slowly. And that's exactly what appears to have happened inside the casino. From a single IoT thermometer sitting inside a fish tank, the attackers had found their way into the casino's digital infrastructure. Eventually, the attackers found what they were looking for. Somewhere within the casino's internal systems were databases containing valuable information, details about high-value customers, internal operational data, possibly financial records and other sensitive information connected to the casino's operations. Once the attackers located the data, the next challenge was getting it out of the network without triggering alarms. Simply downloading large files directly from a corporate server would have been risky. Security monitoring systems are designed to detect unusual downloads or suspicious activity. Instead, the attackers used a quieter method. They routed the data through the very device that had given them access in the first place: the fish tank controller. According to cybersecurity researchers who later analyzed the breach, the attackers were able to transfer roughly 10 gigabytes of data through the aquarium system. The information was quietly transmitted outside the network to servers controlled by the attackers. From the casino's perspective, it appeared as if the aquarium monitoring device was simply communicating normally across the network. But in reality, it had become a hidden channel for data leaving the building. A decorative fish tank sitting in the casino lobby had unknowingly become part of a cyber attack. And for a time, no one realized it was happening. Eventually, something unusual caught the attention of cybersecurity analysts monitoring the casino's network. Large amounts of data were leaving the system. At first, the traffic didn't immediately trigger alarms. Networks constantly send information back and forth, and many devices communicate automatically with external services. But over time, analysts began noticing a pattern. The data transfers were larger than expected, and they were coming from a device that didn't normally generate that much activity. Investigators began tracing the traffic back through the network, following the digital trail to its source. They expected to find a compromised computer, a rogue server, or perhaps an employee workstation infected with malware. Instead, the trail led somewhere unexpected: the casino's aquarium monitoring system, a device designed to regulate the temperature inside a decorative fish tank. At first, the discovery didn't make sense. How could an aquarium controller be responsible for sending large amounts of data outside the network? But as investigators looked deeper, the explanation became clear. The fish tank system had been compromised, and for weeks it had been quietly transmitting stolen information out of the casino's network. A simple device meant to keep fish alive had unknowingly become the gateway for a cyber attack. The casino fish tank breach quickly became one of the most widely cited examples of the dangers of insecure Internet of Things devices. Today, billions of devices are connected to the internet. Smart cameras monitor offices and homes. Thermostats control temperatures automatically. Doorbells stream video to smartphones. Factories rely on industrial sensors to track equipment. Hospitals use connected devices to monitor patients. Every one of these systems can become a potential entry point for attackers. The problem is that many IoT devices were never designed with cybersecurity as a priority. Manufacturers often focus on making devices affordable, easy to install, and simple to connect to the internet. Security updates are rare, default credentials are common, and in many cases these devices end up connected to the same networks that store critical company data. Without proper security controls, a single vulnerable device can expose an entire organization. The casino breach showed how something as small as a temperature sensor could become the first step in a much larger attack. And it demonstrated a lesson that cybersecurity professionals now repeat often. Attackers rarely break through the strongest part of a system. They look for the weakest link. The hackers who breached the casino didn't rely on advanced supercomputers or cutting-edge cyber weapons. They exploited something much simpler, a device that no one thought to secure, a small thermometer sitting inside a decorative fish tank. In a world where billions of devices are now connected to the internet, stories like this are becoming more common. Because sometimes the biggest security risks aren't hidden deep inside complex systems. They're sitting in plain sight, quietly connected, waiting to be overlooked. If you want to see another real cyber attack story, check out the video on screen now, where we break down how hackers pulled off one of the most infamous breaches in internet history. And if you enjoy these cybersecurity investigations, consider subscribing for more stories from the hidden world of hacking.